Well, today we're going car shopping, and we're going to pretend it's 1965 and we have $6,000 burning a hole in our pocket. So we go to the local European car dealer and we're going to take a look around. We're going to see what's available, and we're going to figure out which of these cars we're going to buy. And I know some of you are thinking, well, this Jaguar is clearly not a 1965. It doesn't have covered headlights. It's a later year, but just make believe a little bit. All of these cars are not necessarily exactly 1965s. A couple are, but all of them were available in 1965. The model was available. So let's go on in. And I know you're also thinking, man, this is a small showroom. But these are pretty small cars, so it's all right. Let's walk up front. So let's start up here. We're going to start with an Italian car, and the hood is already popped on it because I'm going to open that later. So this is the Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint Speciale. Very rare car. They don't make many of these. Obviously a very striking car in terms of the appearance. So this one's pretty good. I like the looks of this one. I think it would get some pretty good attention. Let's look inside. Oh, look, here's a free pair of sunglasses. Yeah, we'll take those. So the interior, very beautiful as well. This is a car that it's a good one to be seen in, and man, does it smell good in here. It smells like a shoe store. Leather everywhere. So this one I'm interested in for sure. So let's take a look at the price list they gave me. Let's see. Alfa Romeo, $5,550. Okay. Well, that's under our budget. We came here with $6,000. We can afford this. And just so you know, if you're wondering what's $5,500 worth in 1965, well, the median annual income was $6,900, so, you know, not bad. Pretty good price. So let's look right next to it. Let's look at this 356 Porsche. So this is a 1965 car. It's pretty in its own way. Take a look inside. See, it's different, but it's still a good looking car. And it's got that German craftsmanship. Hear that? Vault door. So this is the last year for the Porsche 356. And as you can see, this is the SC model, so this is the top of the line right here. So this is a good car. So by now, in '65, the 911 was already being produced, and so for a period of time, this car and the 911 sat in the same showroom at the same time, until ultimately, like I said, this is it for this year. So this one, let's see, $4,570, $1,000 less than the Alfa. So something to think about. All right, right behind the Porsche we have the Volvo 1800. In 1965 it would have been the 1800S. This happens to be an 1800E. Nevertheless, basically looks very similar. The dash is different in this one. Actually, the earlier model dash looks a little more cool than this, but leather seats. These do have back seats that are almost usable. As you can tell, the Alfa had none. The Porsche sort of has some. So if 4 seats are an issue, then this is really the only option, at least in this showroom, because we're surrounded by 2-seaters. I've driven this car, obviously, and this is a very solid car, as Volvos are. It has never given a hint of problems, and nothing's ever been done to it other than an oil change. So yeah, these Volvos are, I would highly recommend one of these. The prices are still extremely affordable for these cars. And in 1965, speaking of price, $3,920. So look at that. Less than the Alfa, clearly, less than the Porsche, clearly. This is a whole lot of car for under 4,000 bucks. All right, let's keep looking. We'll pop the hood in a minute. We'll take a look what's going on there, because while these are all European sports cars and we're pretending they're all 1965, they are extremely different when you look under the hood. So of course the Jaguar E Type, not much more to say about these. Everybody knows what Enzo Ferrari said about them, if you don't look it up. But yeah, beautiful car, 2-seat roadster, a nice big inline 6 up front, and we'll look at the engines, like I said, in a minute. But of all the cars in this showroom here, this one has the most horsepower by a fair amount. And honestly, if you're really looking at a sports car, if that's what you want, something to carve up the twisty roads with, these are almost more, I mean, for all their advanced suspension and everything else, they're really nice as just a cruiser down the road. They drive really well. This one happens to have power steering. I don't know why. You don't really need it, but it makes for a really easy drive. And really the Volvo is kind of similar. It's more of a GT type car. So what do we got to pay for this one? This one's got to cost some money, right? So yeah, the price tag on this one is $5,580. So $30 more than the Alfa. Almost the same price, but a very different driving experience, right? I can tell you, when you get behind the wheel and you look at this big hood out in front of you, it's a pretty cool sight when you're aiming this thing down the road. All right, finally, let's take a look at the little Sunbeam Tiger. So, classic little 2-seat British roadster. Of course, the story, everybody should know this as well. Started out as an Alpine, and then they got a hold of Carroll Shelby and said, hey, how do we squeeze an American V8 into this thing? They did it already with the Cobra from AC. So they figured it out. They put a little 260 V8 in there, and again, I'll pop the hood and show you in a second. So now this is a different kind of drive. This is a very short wheelbase car. It's very tossable. It has ample power for the size and weight, and yeah, it's a fun car. So what'll this cost us? All right, so according to my list, the little Tiger here is only $3,425. This is the cheapest car in the whole showroom here, and it's a lot of fun for the dollar. So now let's pop the hoods and let's see what's going on underneath. All right, so let's start with the Alfa again. And like I said, this is back in '65. This is back in the day when people used to pop the hood of their car, or bonnet if you're in England, and take a look at what's inside, because back then it wasn't a big piece of plastic covering up the engine. Things were very pretty, things were very interesting. and very different. So let's see what's going on with the Alfa. So as you can see, this is the classic Alfa engine. They used it for, shoot, from the 50s through the 90s. Twin overhead cam, 1750cc is where we're at with this one. It's the Veloce engine. Very pretty, very smooth. It's got twin 2-barrel Webers on it, as you can kind of see underneath that air intake. So in Veloce form, this Alfa's good for about 130 horsepower. I know that doesn't sound like a lot now, but these cars are very light comparatively. So beautiful engine. This and the Jag are the only two with the overhead cams in it. So that's cool. So now, for something completely different, we go to the rear of the Porsche, look under the deck lid, and here we have the flat 4 air-cooled 356 SC engine. As you can see, there's two Solex 2-barrel carburetors in here, very similar to the Webers. But what a different way to get a similar result from a 4-cylinder engine. I mean, the only thing in common between this and the Alfa is the twin 2-barrel carburetors, really. So in this form, we're looking at about 95 horsepower. So this is the least horsepower of any car in the showroom here. But man, it's a revvy little engine. I can best describe this as a happy car. It just wants to go. It just begs you to wind out the RPMs before you change gears. It just wants to drive. It's just like the Porsches today. Can you see the oil leak under the Jag? Yeah. That's exactly what a British car is supposed to do. So then the Volvo, so again, we're pretending it's 65. In 65, this would have had a carburetor, not fuel injection. But you get the idea. It's in 65, this would be an 1800cc inline 4, pretty basic, fundamental overhead valve. These things are all about reliability, honestly. I mean, I seriously have not done anything to this car at all. It starts every time, doesn't matter how long it's been sitting. It's just dead reliable. So, something to think about as you're pondering where to spend your money. And then over to the Tiger, which again, something completely different up front. Here's the American V8, 260 cubic inches. It fits, barely, but it does fit. Not that heavy. It's a little more weight over the front wheels, but not that much. It's I don't really notice it. So I forgot to mention the Volvo is good for about 100 horsepower. So the Tiger in its original form with the 2-barrel carburetor, no modifications, was 164 horsepower. Certainly a lot more than the Alpine with its straight 4. And certainly enough to make this an interesting ride, especially if you put your foot down on the throttle at the wrong time in a corner, because if it's a wet road, you might be going around in a circle. And then finally, let's look at the Jag. Again, what an iconic engine, you know. The dual overhead cam, straight 6, dating all the way back to the days of the XK120 in 1949. And this car, this engine remained in Jaguars through the 80s. I'm not sure what year the They were finally stopped use. They might have gone into the 90s even. But in this form, in 65, this would have been a 3.8 liter engine. It would have had prettier valve covers than this, or I'm sorry, cam covers than this. This one has 2 Stromberg carbs. Back in 65, I believe they would have been SUs. All I can say is silky smooth. I mean, this thing is just like a turbine up front. It's just completely smooth driver. Plenty of power, plenty of torque. As I said, this car has by a fair amount the most horsepower. We're looking at 265 horse back in 65. So I mean, this is 100 horse. This car has more horsepower than the Tiger with a V8 than the Porsche has altogether, right? 100 horsepower more in the Jag. The Volvo and the Porsche have about 100. And like I said, the Alfa's about 125, 130. So a pretty amazing car. And take a look at this front suspension. I mean, this is 1965. Double wishbones, disc brakes all around. Just impressive in terms of engineering. They first came out in like 61, and like nothing anybody had seen. And obviously, when the bonnet's tilted up, that's a pretty cool thing to do at a car show. So there you go. That's our selection. So, which would you buy? Are you looking for looks? Well, then it's a call between the Jag and the Alfa, both about the same price. The Alfa is going to be a lot more exclusive. They didn't make very many of these. They only made, of the Giulia, the Sprint Speciales, they only made like a little over 2,000 of them. You're definitely not going to see yourself coming and going on the road. The E Type, they made quite a few more. Most people have seen an E Type. Most people have not seen a Sprint Speciale. So if you're looking for good looking and exclusive, this may be your car. If you're looking for just good looking, fast, silky smooth engine, then the E Type's probably the way to go. Both at the high end of the prices in here. If you're looking for dead reliability, still a really cool looking car. It has a real trunk, which I didn't open the trunks on all of these. The Sunbeam's actually not too bad either, but this one has a real trunk in it. Look at that. Yeah, it's the real deal. And again, so solid, so reliable, good looking, a trunk, a back seat. You know, this is a car that's very versatile. Not the fastest car in the world, if that's what you're looking for. And if you're just looking for something super happy, loves to go for a ride, it wishes it was out on the road right now, it hates being stuck in a garage, it just wants to go have fun, then the Porsche is for you. And I'll give it away ahead of time. This is my favorite car to drive of all of these, which is funny to me because it has the lowest horsepower of any of them, but it's just a fun car. And finally, the Tiger. If you're looking for something very go-karty, very tossable, it's got a nice V8 rumble to it when you pull up next to somebody at a light. Drop top, of course. If if a convertible's your thing, you got 2 options here. It's a fun car. I don't know why, but I like driving the Porsche better. But this is the cheapest one of the bunch too, by a fair amount. So good horsepower, good fun. Not the most practical car in the world, but neither is the Jag for that matter. But shoot, for the price, you can buy one of these, have a couple $1,000s left over to goof off and take a nice trip across the country with it. But For me, it'd be a tough call between the Jag and the Porsche. Both really fun to drive. The Jaguar reliability, you know, it's not bad. This one's kind of been a lot of work to keep it happy. The 356, I mean, again, super reliable, kind of like the Volvo. So there you go. Take your pick. Which one do you want? I can tell you that I'll be taking the Jag out because it's in the way of everything else. But other than that, once I get all these cars rearranged, I'm taking the 356 home and spending the fall driving this one. So, all right, everybody. There you go from our tiny little European car showroom in 1965.